I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Star Wars has a plethora of messages and stories interwoven within its sci-fi adventure story. Although this is true throughout all of the movies and shows, I want to focus on the prequels today, as the story elements and messages within the original trilogy are only expanded upon, and with great effect. There are many different messages and story elements within the prequels, but today I want to focus on 3 main elements that really stuck out to me when revisiting the prequels, and 3 elements on this list that I don't really see. With that out of the way, let's get started. Behavioralism is the study of why people behave the way they do. Many factors can go into the choices and behaviors of somebody, and I believe that we see that best in Anakin Skywalker's choices leading up to his fall to the dark side. In the original trilogy, we only see Darth Vader, the consequence, the output. Now, with the prequels, we see and understand Anakin's anger and how he responds to traumatic events that unfold during the movies. Anakin and his mother were sold into slavery before meeting Qui-Gon Jinn. Even when given the opportunity to leave, Anakin states,
"I don't want things to change." But you can't stop the change.
This pain is further pushed when later finding his mother kidnapped and killed by Tusken Raiders. Having to make the choice to leave his mother and only life he knew took a toll on him, which is shown in future Star Wars media prior to his turn to the dark side.
Zygurian scum! I'll handle that slaver.
So now, with Padme's life on the line, he'll do anything to not lose the person he loves most once again. So, when his father figure Palpatine offers to save her, Anakin is willing to sacrifice anything. He states this the last time he sees Padme.
I won't lose you the way I lost my mother. I am becoming more powerful than any Jedi has ever dreamed of, and I'm doing it for you.
This journey of his makes his transition to Darth Vader all the more tragic, and he ends up losing the people he cared for the most in life. With this context, we see Darth Vader as more than just an evil stand-in. We see his pain, his conflict, and the tragedy of how he got in the position he was in. This ultimately makes his final redemption all the more sweet. Although this is a very simplified explanation of behavioralism, I believe it still very much applies. For a more detailed explanation to the theory, click the video by Professor Jeffrey Kaplan in the description below. Christianity, like in many other Western films, finds itself in a lot of undertones within Star Wars. You don't even have to look too hard to see that small bits and pieces of this are scattered all throughout the franchise. First off, when we first meet Anakin Skywalker, Qui-Gon Jinn is told by Shmi that Anakin is miraculously conceived and of virgin birth, much like Jesus Christ.
Who was his father?
There was no father. I carried him, I gave birth, I raised him. I can't explain what happened.
Obi-Wan Kenobi reappears as a Force ghost after his death, similar to the resurrection. The Jedi live to a moral code, wear robes, and are stationed in a temple. Anakin, when talking about Padme, even mentions the idea of angels within the Star Wars universe.
Are you an angel? What?
Anakin redeems himself and is forgiven of his wrongdoings right before his death. Even the expression, "Oh my God," is within the Star Wars canon.
Right out here.
Oh my God.
These examples just scratch the surface, and I encourage you to look into other articles about this if you're interested. Reddit user Practically Throwaway made a great post in r/ma installation, link in the description below. Politics is one of the most, if not the most, popular and prominent topic within the prequel trilogy. And despite the hate and backlash that prequels get at times, I think they hit the nail on the head with the portrayal of failing democracies and rising dictatorships, which hits home for many people today. Ultimately, the fall of the Republic and their democracy comes at the hands of an inside job within the government itself. front-facing, appointed government officials manipulating and planning behind the scenes, making plays to gain more power and control. Even when the plot is made open, there is little anyone can do about it. Some try to take matters into their own hands, like Mace Windu. Others see that there is little in their power they can do, and end up withdrawing, like Yoda did to Dagobah. These portrayals of the fall of liberty heavily reflects even today's recent times in US politics, just like they did back then. In a 2019 Vox article by Emily St. James, she quotes, "In 2005's Revenge of the Sith, Amidala's line, 'So this is how liberty dies,' to thunderous applause, was explicitly spoken of by Lucas as commentary on the George W. Bush administration's wars in Iraq and Afghanistan." The full interview with George Lucas is in the description below for anyone wanting to see his full view. I highly recommend it. The prequels were truly a reflection of Lucas's political views at the time, and people today use Star Wars to further portray their political views. However, I want to go slightly deeper. Although the prequels, especially the third movie, focus a lot on the fall of the government, I believe the real messaging behind Star Wars is the response to injustice, not warning about injustice itself. Star Wars is ultimately a story of striving for freedom and rebelling against the oppressive status quo. Yes, Palpatine will bring peace, but only through the use of oppressing people's voices and the formation of a dictatorial, dystopian society where there's little in terms of people's individual freedoms and liberties. I don't think Star Wars is so much pro-democracy as it is more anti-tyranny. I think that's why its story connects with so many people and with so many events in our modern time. Although I kind of see where this is coming from, I don't think the idea of the Jedi being the Knights of the Round Table really stuck out with me. Yes, with the idea of the council sitting in a circle and the term Jedi Knight, you can start to draw parallels, but I think that those are the strongest connections we really have on this idea. Yes, there is the idea of the fair unknown, which is the idea that a lowly person suddenly discovers that they are of noble, important lineage. This can be applied to a multitude of characters, mainly the Skywalkers, but I'd argue that the idea of prophesized unknown person turns out to be very important, with the virgin birth of Jesus Christ might apply more here. Along with that, the idea of the chivalric code and the Jedi's service to others applies more to the ideas of Christianity, and even more parallels are drawn within the religious direction. I think a lot of the parallels that you see within this theory comes a lot from the different ideals within Christianity. I don't know if I consider the first 6 Star Wars movies having strong feminist messaging, but I can see where this is coming from. Princess Leia and Padme Amidala are awesome and strong in their own right, but ultimately, these characters serve as support and reasons for the main plots and ideas within the story. Anakin's turn to the dark side had Padme as his main factor, wanting nothing more than to protect her. Luke's call to adventure had been largely influenced by Leia's distress call and her needing to be rescued. Ultimately, however, these plots are about Anakin and Luke's rise and fall, and not about Padme and Leia. This one was a weird one for me. It's a take on the idea that the Empire and climate change are somewhat connected. The imagery of the Empire being a strain on natural beauty is definitely seen. We talked about in the last video the different imagery of the Empire, and I think this is supposed to be more of a reflection of the rigid and dark imagery of the Empire, rather than the Empire versus nature itself. For example, outside of the few Jedi hermits we see throughout the series, the Jedi Council and Temple are both on Coruscant, a large urban environment as well. Although not seen as dark and intruding, it doesn't exactly scream natural climate either. However, this idea of the Empire being against nature is seen most in the Jedi Survivor games, but the only other mainstream imaging close to it I could think of was Endor, where the destruction of natural beauty isn't really prevalent within that scene of the story. There's so much someone can learn and analyze in Star Wars media, and I hope this video opens your eyes a little bit on different ways to see the events of Star Wars outside of the cool effects and world building that takes place. So, next time you're watching a Star Wars movie, I encourage you to take a second to pause afterwards and look deeper between the lines, and I know you'll see a bit more behind it all. Thank you so much for watching. For more videos and to check out our live streams here in Blue Skies Are Gray, click here. Thanks, and have a great day.